Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and today I am joined by a friend down in a sunny state far away from me, Jennifer Warren Medwin, who is joining me from Miami, and we are celebrating another book launch, everyone. Jennifer's book came out last month, Jennifer?
In January.
Oh my God, time is flying. It is March now, but it's called Strategies and Tips from a Divorce Coach, a Roadmap to Move Forward. And I was just telling Jennifer that to me, this is taking a divorce coach and distilling her or him down into the pages of a book. It's really a coach in a book, or at least the beginning of a coaching experience. And if you can't afford a coach or you want to find out what that's going to be like, I highly recommend getting the book because she's done a beautiful job distilling this down. So Jennifer, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me today.
And I have to say, just before we get started, you're one of the people on this planet who I have Buddha envy of. Jennifer and I were talking about our mutual love of Buddhas, and I have a rather large marble Buddha here in my office, but she sent me a picture, and with her permission, I'll share it in the show notes. She has the most gorgeous pool in her backyard and a gorgeous, huge Buddha that's beautifully lit up with palm trees around it. I have serious Buddha envy.
Oh, well, thank you. I have to say that I'm very fortunate because wherever I move in my house, I can see the Buddha. And just like I say to my clients, to set the intention of creating things around you that bring you peace. Whenever I see the Buddha, it reminds me to just go inside and just be silent for a minute and then move on.
And to have that out of every window in your home is such a blessing. I've had to change that a little bit around, and I have Buddhas in every room of my house. But it's the same reason. I believe very strongly that we can create an environment that nurtures us and brings us the peace that maybe we're not finding inward, or that we need to be reminded to take that pause, like you just said, so that we can find those moments of peace in our life. And for me, Buddha does that.
Yes, it reminds us that we are human beings. We often are human doers. We are constantly living life. Either we're sleepwalking through life or we're on that rat race. And it's important to bring ourselves back. And the reason is because happiness is really an inside job. We outsource it so often, but it's really, if we listen to our inner whispers, it's all inside.
Yeah. And actually, let's turn those whispers into shouts, right? So that we don't have to strain to hear them. And in that moment of silence, when we see our Buddha, and people have different things. I also enjoy a good lotus for some reason, and Asian art for me very much brings that peaceful moment. But if you're a person who enjoys the ocean, you can have a picture of the ocean, or if you're a person who enjoys the mountains, you can have a picture of the mountains. It doesn't have to be that it's your, where you live. You can create that environment in a variety of different ways.
For sure. And I love the fact that you brought up the lotus and that you have the lotus, because the lotus actually grows in muck.
Yeah. Yes.
And then it turns into a beautiful flower. And we all have that opportunity. Whatever challenge we're going in, if we remind ourselves, just like the lotus plant, we can evolve and emerge so much more than what we are right now.
Right. Yeah. I think was it Buddha who said, no mud, no lotus, or, without the messy, goopy mess of life, you wouldn't have the beauty of life, is what the intention was there. So, well, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can do some internal work, a little mental work to help yourself through that divorce process. And you have actually in the book, I told you when I was thrilled to get a copy of it. And when I read through it, I thought you did something that was incredibly smart, considering that you are dealing with people who are in a time of trauma, difficult emotions. just a heck of a lot going on, having to learn a lot, having to take in a lot of information. And so we were just talking about this. You have a number of mnemonics that you've set up in the book. And I said it right, everybody, just so you all know, I've been screwing up that word all along, but mnemonics, which are, for those who do not know, where you take, they can be a variety of different things, but it's basically a verbal, either alliteration or use of the first letter in a bunch of words so that you can remember something. And I think that's important, as you and I just talked about a minute ago. People have it's hard to take in all the information around divorce. I mean, your book is hundreds of pages long. We get an exact count on here. Yeah, you just hop over into the 209 or 11 pages. That's a lot of information to take in. And the mnemonics really help people to break things down. Was that a part of your thought process?
It definitely was. I want to answer your question, but first I want to acknowledge something, that practice makes better. And you practiced saying mnemonics.
See?
I didn't practice like you did. And practice makes better, right? And that's so important for people to understand, that just because something isn't in the moment doesn't mean it cannot be, right? And so it's important to practice. Nothing will be perfect, because perfect is a setup, right? But if you practice, things will get better. So I will practice saying that word as well.
Well, I got it from you, so we know you can do it.
That's right. That's right. Well, when you're going through a divorce, whether you want the divorce or you don't want the divorce, you go through a series of vast emotions. And often you're overwhelmed by all the responsibilities that divorce brings, right? There's lots of different documents you need to have, and thought processes, and items that you never even thought you would actually have to think about. And I created the book to help individuals break it down in a very tangible, user-friendly way. So using mnemonics is very helpful for people, because they can have these tools and strategies in their pockets that can help them remember the skills that I want to teach them. So for example, I have something called the truth framework. And what does that stand for? It stands for trust, reflect, understand, talk openly, and honor. And that all has to do with you. How do you champion your own authenticity? How do you listen to your own whispers? How do you trust yourself and the process? And it's so important. And when we start developing an awareness of the truth framework, that's when we start evolving and growing and championing our own authenticity, because we don't live in a comfort zone. We don't grow in a comfort zone. Growth is outside of the comfort zone. And when you learn the truth framework, where you start to trust yourself and you start to reflect on what it is that you're saying. Is it helpful? Is it hurtful? Is it accurate? Oftentimes our minds are just spiraling with negativity that weigh us down and don't empower us. And once we have this understanding, this acceptance, we really can move forward. We really can communicate more efficiently. That's the T in talk openly. And then we can really honor ourselves. And, when we honor ourselves, we empower ourselves. And I learned something new the other day, which I never knew. So in the word empower, there are two letters. The first two letters, what are they?
The first two letters, E-M.
Turn them around.
M-E.
And it says me power.
Yeah.
Empowerment is all about what we can do for ourselves to empower us to be the best we can. And it's not selfish, because when we're the best we can be, it's like throwing a stone in the water. It's a ripple effect. Everyone else around us will benefit from it.
Absolutely. And when we spiral down, everyone else is going to get sucked down, just like down that drain hole
That's
with
right.
us. It's
That's
100%.
right.
And I did not know the empower and me power. And I love that your truth framework is focused on you, on yourself, as opposed to everyone is so busy often in divorce trying to control what is outside of their control. I see it every day. I've done this for a very long time, and it's wrenching to watch people struggle with that, because how futile it is and you can say it. But the idea of having something like the truth framework in your mind, something simple that you can look back to when you're feeling that, spiraling out of control, or that trying to control what you cannot control. When your co-parent does something in their household, they dessert for breakfast or whatever it might be, all those things, you have that ability to pull it back to yourself and look in.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And, this is not a mnemonic phrase, but it is a formula that I do teach my clients. It's not something that I've developed myself, but E plus R equals O. So E is the event, R is how you react and respond to it, and O is the outcome. So how you react and respond to an event has a direct impact on the outcome, right? And in the reacting and responding, I'm sure many of the viewers or listeners have heard pause, right? Well, my frameworks take the place of the word pause, but they create a pause. And in that pause, you can figure out how you want to react and respond, because you know what? That's where your control is. That's the only place your control is.
Yeah. And I call it the grace of space. Give yourself the grace of some space, and give your co-parent and everyone else a little bit of grace of space. We all benefit from it.
Yes.
And that is what you have your power over too, right? That's what you can control.
That's right. And that's about honoring yourself, right? Because if you can think about what you want to say and you can communicate it effectively with empathy, attention, and respect, conflict will actually go down. And that's from Bill Eddy, who I love. We
all love Bill Eddy.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about ear statements, because, I think Bill is the king of mnemonics. He came up with, everybody out there who's listening, if they're listening to my podcast, they know Biff, they know ear, they know cars. But you just mentioned ear. And I do think so people think of that only because Bill is so associated with high conflict. They think of ear statements or Biff only within the context of a high conflict. Ear is something that you can use every single day of your life in communicating with anyone.
That's right. That's right. And I talk about this in my book, because at the very core, all human beings want to be acknowledged. And it doesn't necessarily have to have conflict surrounding it. It could be that you want someone to really listen, because the truth of the matter is, and statistics prove this, people listen to defend, not to understand. And yet, if you use this ear statement and you acknowledge somebody, and you show empathy and attention and respect, they listen more intently, right? We have two ears and only one mouth for a reason, right? And so you will start to notice, and as you practice and get better with this, you will notice that you will feel heard much more. And if you're in conflict, you will be able to diminish the conflict and be able to come to some resolution in a faster, more peaceful way.
Yeah, it's truly one of the most powerful tools, or a group of tools, I would call it, out there. And you're a mediator as well as I am. And really, ear statements are really at the core of what we do on that, what I'll say is that side of the table, trying to help our couples, right? We one of the biggest tools a mediator will use is to let people know that we're hearing them.
Right. That's right.
It's just a critical part of communication that we so often lose in that struggle, as you said, that we listen to respond or listen to defend.
That's right. And you know, the more we defend, it's fanning the flames, right? And not only fanning the flames outside of ourselves, but internally, physiologically. And the more we become aware of that, the more calm we can remain. And the more calm we can remain, the more thought we will be able to use, the more thoughts we would be able to use in a more healthy manner.
It makes all the difference. It really does.
It really does.
So let's look at another one of your mnemonics, which was the 3 A's framework. So we did the truth framework, but you also have the 3 A's.
So the 3 A's framework is really at the heart of my practice. And, you know, I want to say this, that my practice is based on the empowerment dynamic, which at the very foundation means that human beings are always at choice, right? And here's the choice. We're either victims or creators of a situation, okay? In anything, we're talking about divorce, yet it can be bankruptcy, it can be illness, it could be death, any range of difficult situations. And it's okay to park yourself in feeling victimized for a period of time. And then we have to move out of that comfort zone for there to be growth. And so the 3 A's framework is having a creator mindset, not having a fixed mindset, having an open mindset where you become aware of a situation. Then I'm going to give you the 3 A's and then I'll go back and give an example. So
Perfect.
You have an awareness, an acceptance, and then acceptance of that awareness, and then action. Okay. So for example, I had a client who was just extremely angry at the whole process. And every time she spoke to her soon-to-be ex over the phone or in person, she would yell at him. Okay. And I would assume that he didn't like it based on the type of behavior we were seeing come back. And so we spoke a lot about the 3 A's framework, you know, having an awareness that her communication style was very aggressive. And how might we tone it down so that her soon-to-be ex would be a more efficient, effective listener? Okay. And it took some time for her to develop those skills, you know, her body language, you know, her eye contact, her arms, her voice, the level of her voice. Took some time for us to train her, right? Because again, practice makes better. And she developed an acceptance that the way she was conducting herself, the way she was trying to express herself was not helping the situation. And in that acceptance, she was 2/3 of the way there for change, right? And in utilizing the tools that she learned in coaching, she actually developed a healthier communication style, not only with her husband, with her children, her coworkers, and her friends. And she herself could validate her own hard work that she did because it was getting reflected back at her. She felt better physiologically. She felt more heard. And, you know, when you get reinforcement that what you're doing is positive and healthy, you want to keep doing it more. And she just became this voracious learner of, you know, wanting to learn different communication skills. And that was great. And it was all in her being a creator, you know, having a problem, not just focusing on the problem, but looking for ways to solve the problem. And it really helped the divorce.
What an amazing example
Mhm.
of how that the 3 A's work. I remember very long ago in therapy myself, a therapist saying to me, awareness is the beginning of all change. If you sit in a space of being unaware of anything around you or what's happening or what role you are playing in the conflict or whatever's happening in your world, then it's never going to change. And it's, I love that this starts with that awareness, but then tells you what to do even beyond once
That's
you're
right.
aware.
And again, since my practice is all about empowerment, I try to give my clients or the readers these tips and strategies that empower them. So if you develop awareness, you're 1/3 of the way there. If you find the acceptance, you're 2/3. You're almost there. You're almost there. Come on.
Just
And
one more step.
one more step. And you can make change. And change is always possible. I always, and I don't like to use always because, always and never, they confine us. But
Yep.
frequently you find that once you feel successful, it empowers you in so many other areas of your life, and it really gets you going. And I want everyone to realize that there are always messages in whatever mess you find yourself in, right? And there are actually 2 words in message.
Yeah.
Mess
and age. Okay.
And as we age, the way we can look at our messes become, we hope, more profound because of the experiences that we've had that led to this moment, right? And looking for those messages is having a creator mindset, right? Because just because things are right now as they are does not mean that they cannot change, right? And a creator has hope.
Has hope and has, as you said, you empower your clients, has hope. And with that comes the power to change things.
That's
really.
right. That's right.
Move that forward.
That's
and
right.
change. I have to say, I always tell the story on the show. And so my listeners know, I was in the same place doing the same thing, living the same life for 26 years, just kind of coasting. And then when I started to move and experience new things, it was really hard in a lot of ways. New places, new people, new challenges. But my life has grown so much and changed in so many better ways. And so much more has come into my life because of going through that. And that had nothing to do with divorce, but it's an allegory for what can happen at any difficult time in your life.
Yes. And I want to acknowledge that you have the awareness to be able to say that you've gone through these challenges and here I am, and I'm stronger and I'm more empowered. And if something were to come up again where you would feel disenchanted, you have that experience to lift you up and say, you can do it.
Yep.
Right. And that is, championing your own authenticity, your own power is the most important thing that you can have, really. And, that brings me to the lean.
I was just going to say, yes,
because understanding that, that things happen. So the lean framework stands for let it be, empower, which we talked about, accept, and to nourish yourself. And when I talk about let it be, I am not an advocate of let it go, because it's very hard to let something go. Our memory brings us back to whatever particular situation creates a challenge for us. And yet learning to just let it be, just accept that it was a part of your evolution, and figuring out how to find acceptance in that will lead you through to action, right? So letting things be. not necessarily letting them go. I think it's an unrealistic expectation we place on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then empower yourself again. What are ways that you can improve the situation? You know, Glennon Doyle in her book Untamed spoke about easy buttons and reset buttons. And easy buttons are what we sort of like. If I'll give an example. When people stress during divorce, sometimes they eat a lot. Eating is an easy button. It's a pattern, it's a habit that they've developed. A reset button is, well, what can you do when you have this acceptance, this awareness and acceptance that when you stress, you eat? And figuring out what that action might be so that you can turn it around, right? So you're feeling stressed, you get anxious, and you start to eat. You go for something in the refrigerator. You can stop that and say, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk, right? And if you do that and you start practicing it, practice makes better. That's a form of empowerment, empowering yourself, knee power to move forward. Okay. Acceptance. Well, we've been talking about acceptance and how critical it is to understand your responsibility in whatever situation you are in right now. Mm-hmm. And owning it and moving forward, not rehashing it and not forecasting what will be in the moment, but just right here, right now. Eckhart Tolle speaks about the isness of the moment.
Yes.
Right. And nourish. So nourish yourself. It comes down to, are you taking care of yourself? Are you exercising? Are you eating a well-balanced diet? Okay. Are you saying affirmations in the morning? Are you creating new habits? Are you socializing with people? People nourish themselves in different ways, and there's no one right way. Are you taking care of yourself? Self-care during any time of challenge, particularly divorce, is so important. And so that's the lean framework, where you're actually leaning into whatever challenge you have and understanding that you are the creator of whatever you are going to evolve through.
I really love that progression as you walk people through it, because, well, there are so many different, and acceptance is at the core. We talked about awareness. Acceptance is also a very important as we talked about earlier, but that, the progression that you take people through with lean that can get you to moving forward. And that's another aspect of your lean method that I think is so important, because people, it's forward facing, it's future focused, not what went wrong in the past, it's very focused forward. And that is something that's very hard for people when they're caught up in the divorce cycle. Very often mentally, they are caught in the past. You talked about victimhood. They're very caught in what happened to them. Mm-hmm. And that I'm being divorced by my spouse. And so lean, really, I loved that aspect of it that is so forward facing. I'm always encouraging people to look to their beyond, of course.
Yeah. And, rehashing, there's no control over what has happened. Right. Yep. And, it's interesting because people always say to me, well, I don't understand, why I need a therapist and a coach. And I saw a great photograph the other day, and I'm bringing this up because of your statement about being forward focused, right? That's what coaching is all about. So in this photograph, a person is holding a suitcase, and someone asks, well, what's the difference between a coach and a therapist? And the person says, a therapist would see my suitcase, open it up, and take each individual item out. A coach would see my suitcase and say, I see you want to go somewhere. Let me help you figure out how you're going to get there.
Wow, what a great example. Oh my gosh. That explains it so much. I've heard it.
It really does.
The therapist is your past and the coach is your future. Mm-hmm. But that's a wonderful way to describe it.
Yes, I'm happy to send you the photograph. later.
Let's put it in the show notes for sure.
I really love it. And I think it really helps you. And that's where your power is, right? That's where, your response and your reaction to whatever is in the moment can propel you.
Yeah. I mean, it's no coincidence that the podcast is divorce and beyond. And most of my episodes, although they are about divorce, always have an aspect of your beyond, because I don't want people to be even caught up in the moment of the divorce, which is also easy to do as you just circle and circle and circle and continue repetitive patterns.
And, when they work with a coach, they'll start to realize and they'll start to recognize, I'm rehashing. And another tool that I help my clients sort of practice is this helpful or hurtful thinking? That's
a good one.
And and it's funny because clients will come to me and say, I hear you right here, Jen. Is this helpful or hurtful? It works, because if you can stop your train of thought and actually sort of be your own mediator, right?
Yeah.
It really encourages you to think whether what you're using your energy for is of value.
And it is value to you and to your future. And is that going to, I love the example of the suitcase. Is that going to help you go on the trip that you're planning? Is that going to help you get to that forward moving place? I see, we talked in the pre-recording about my friend, Christina McGee, who's calls sort of helping parties when she works with them parents, and she's a parenting expert. So she's usually working with moms and dads, or moms and moms and dads and dads. And, she calls them sticky thoughts. And that's exactly what all the mnemonics and the 3As and the suitcase, all of these are wonderful ways that I think you have put into the book, and that you have this real gift for distilling things down into ways that people, even in the heat of the moment, whether it's a sadness or a overwhelm or anger, whatever's coming at them, that little voice, like the little Jennifer on the shoulder, is going to say, is this helpful or hurtful? Right. And that's proof that the way that you are able to get information across to people is sticking with them.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, my goal is to help individuals, who are in the should I, shouldn't I stage all the way through post-divorce, help them make the process more efficient, productive, and healthy.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that. How would people get in touch with you if they would like to work with you? We'll talk about how they can get the book, but let's first talk about how they find you.
So I have a website, seekingempowerment.com. I'm on all the social media platforms, and they can feel free also to email me at jen@seekingempowerment.com.
And of course, empowerment's in your name and in your website. And that's also your handle on Instagram as well. So I'll have all of that in the show notes. So people can just go to the show notes or to the website, divorcebeyondpod.com, and you'll be able to click through to all of Jennifer's different sites, Instagrams, et cetera. And then the book, what is the best? I was lucky enough to have you send me a copy of the book, but how can my listeners get a copy of the book?
So it is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay. So you can just, again, I'll do a link to both Barnes and Noble and Amazon. And you even, just a few more things for people. So we talked about some of the mnemonics, but here's the truth. And then there's a worksheet for you that's right in the book. So it's not just that it's like, read this and move on. You've actually created space for people to take that time to break down and distill and think about and apply what they're learning as they go along in the book. And here's the should and the could. Who is it? Dr. Elizabeth Cohen's always saying, don't stop shoulding on yourself.
That's right.
I love that.
We don't realize how our inner dialogue can disempower us, right? And once you start with that awareness and you start understanding that you use should and what could be the alternative, you will feel your energy and your just the way you stand rise. You will. And it's just about practicing it. It's just about, really figuring out how, happiness is an inside job.
Yeah.
Right. And we outsource it a lot. And yet you are your own boss, and you're your own boss of yourself, which means that if you're not going to do it for you, you're probably not going to get, no one else can do it for you. Right. And just like I say to my clients in the process of divorce, you are the boss. You are the boss of this process. Take control, create the life that you want. And it's possible, right?
100%. I've seen hundreds of clients do it. I'm sure you have as well. I've been through it myself. And if I had stayed in the mentality that my life was out of my control, that my divorce happened to me, and that other difficulties that have come along were things that I didn't have control over, I would not have the life that I love oh so much today, and a future that I look forward to it too. And we've both seen people do that. So, maybe that's a wonderful note to end on, because it's hopeful and it's
right.
Forward facing.
And that's what it's about, really.
It is. And so I thank you for joining me to talk about the book. I thank you for writing the book, because it's really, I've told you, I love divorce coaches. I think they play an incredibly powerful and important part in the process. In fact, one of the more important players, in many cases, way ahead of my compadres in the divorce law field. Lawyers, we do part of the job. A coach is actually going to help you into that future and is a much more important part. So get the book, give Jen a call or reach out on the website. And I thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for all that you do. It's much appreciated.
Oh, well, can't do enough for my coaches.